Thank you so much. Okay, so our objectives today is I want to learn the difference between behavior-based and family-based parenting. I want to talk about the influences on today's family values because it's heavily influences both positively and negatively by culture, religion, politics. How to decide your own family values that you might have. And how to implement the family values that you would like for your family or your children specifically. I do want this to be interactive, so the last half we're going to do a lot of problem solving together. I'll try to go through the information quickly on the front end. And the reason why I make it more interactive on the back end is parenting is should be a responsive act more than a reactive act. But I think when our kids are struggling, we get to that place where we're very reactive and we don't necessarily respond with our values in the moment, because that's hard to do. Okay. Our parenting disclaimer. Parenting is hard. I don't know if anyone has noticed this. I'm assuming all of you guys have kids or are about to have kids. How many people have kids? Yeah, everybody. Same. It is definitely the single most hardest thing you're probably going to do in your life, because you're trying to raise something a lot of times from the beginning to a healthy human adult so they can be in the world so that hopefully someday they can be a healthy parent as well. It is exhausting. It doesn't end. And it's constantly changing because your kids are constantly changing and you are constantly changing. I'm not here to tell any of you that you're doing parenting wrong. There's not really a right or wrong way to parent your child unless you're deliberately trying to hurt them, so let's not deliberately hurt our children. But the goal that I want from everyone to take away from this is that we're all going to be the world's okayest parents. Yeah. Okay, so behavior-based parenting, what's wrong with it? The first thing to remember is behavior in children is a symptom of what they're feeling in their internal world. I can't remember what clinician or what book I read in which they said that all people, and kids more specifically, are emotional beings that sometimes think. And when we're emotional beings, that means we're constantly reacting to the world around us, and kids rarely think through things. I don't know. My kid does not think through the world very as much as I would like him to. And we have to help them learn how to step back, think, and how they're going to problem solve in the world. When we have a behavior-based parenting, we are losing sight of what's actually matters in favor of what is immediately observable for our kids. So a lot of times, I use I don't know if anyone's ever heard the iceberg analogy in therapy, where we're so focused on the shiny thing above the water, we forget what's under the water. And if anyone knows the story of the Titanic, the thing that sunk the ship was the part of the glacier that was under the water, of course. So we really need to help them figure out what's happening under the water so that we can help them navigate healthier choices in their life. Behavior-based parenting also only offers short-term solutions that temporarily change behavior, but does not allow for growth. It creates a dependence on external reinforcements. And a lot of times what I tell parents is this end up becoming kids trying to please their parents and out of fear of getting in trouble or whatever the case may be, instead of taking a step back and go, what do I need to do in this moment? And when we look at ourselves and our children from only what they're producing on the surface, we completely disregard their feelings, fears, needs, and offering compassion to our kids. So one of the examples is a brother who's stealing a toy from their sister, and our automatic response is often, hey, give that toy back, instead of taking a step back and go, but why did you steal that toy? And there could be a million reasons for why they stole the toy. It could be as simple as they're hungry and tired and just don't know how to interact with their sibling anymore. It could be that they're feeling a lot of jealousy because their sibling feels like they're getting more attention from the parent instead of them, so they want the attention from your parent. So we have to sometimes take a step back and figure out what is happening with our kids to really know that is occurring. The can lead to negative self-perception due to constant correction. This one's tough, because by the time some families come in, and I'll have a family that comes in and said, hey, my kid is really struggling, I don't know what to do. The kid will tell me, well, I'm just a bad kid. And I really don't believe there's a lot of bad kids. I think kids are struggling, they don't know what to do, but when they're constantly getting redirected for their behavior, they feel like they can't do anything right, so they're already creating a story that I'm a bad kid, I can't do anything right, and now we're having to do a lot of work in the therapeutic setting. And lastly, the focus on compliance over creating moral codes and ethics. Again, that one's hard because that compliance always comes from a place of fear. And when our kids are making decisions from fear, they're not really thinking about other people, they're not thinking about what their choice is, what they believe in, and we really want kids who are starting to believe in things. So some of the long-term consequences, and again, this is not just because of behavior-based parenting, but it's heavily influenced by. We're starting to see a measurable increase in failure to launch cases in 20-somethings, and these are not just the 20-somethings that come home because they don't have money for an apartment of their own. It's literally they come home because they can't function in the world. This is something, even a decade ago, you saw maybe a handful come into my practice. Now there is a constant flow. Kids are really struggling to make decisions for themselves. They need that validation from the parent. Am I doing the right thing? You told me to do this, I can't do that. So they're so focused on what everybody else is telling them, they do not know how to make independent decisions. A measurable dip in empathy among today's youth. Again, a lot of this comes from the so focused on, am I doing something correctly, that they forget how much their actions are affecting the people around them, whether it's their friends, whether it's loved ones, whether it's parents, whether it's siblings. They just are so focused on what is my behavior right now? Will I get in trouble? Will someone comment on how good I am? That piece of empathy just totally gets lost. From a place of academics, we're seeing a lot more cheating and weaker moral reasoning. This one is really tough because, again, when we come from that behavior basis, we're looking for perfection. And when we're looking for perfection, kids go in and say, here's my test. I need to be perfect on this test. It doesn't matter what I know. I need to show that I'm perfect so I don't get in trouble. So then they will do anything to make sure they look good. And that can, again, that's leading to a lot of cheating, which is sad because then they're not learning information. There's a 58% increase in narcissism in the last decade. That one's scary, by the way. That one's really scary. This is especially among college students. Again, they're really forgetting that they affect the world around them and they don't know how to be in relationship because they're so focused on, am I looking good? I mean, obviously this has implications with social media and stuff as well, but it's also a piece of our parenting because we're not teaching them how to be with other people. So when youth are trying to look good versus feel good, morality does tend to go away. So this is one of my favorite books. If you ever get a chance to read it, I highly recommend it. We are all humans who share the same fears, concerns, and deserve to be treated with dignity. All humans includes kids. I want you to kind of ask yourself, when you parent, is this something you would tell a coworker? Is this something you would tell a spouse? Like, would you go, I think you need to go take a time out. Like, what would happen if you told your spouse that? Probably not good, or a coworker for that matter. There's a lot of things that we say to kids where we treat them more as pets. Again, not purposely. We think we're teaching, but instead of human beings. And I really want us to make sure that we start seeing kids as humans and that they are flawed humans that need to learn the world. Okay, so what are family values? Family values are beliefs, ethics, priorities shared by each family member. The focus is on intentional choices from a place of health, connection, and relationship. And this is hard because if I asked you today, how many of you think you can name what your family value is? Does anyone have one that they feel like they're at least strong on? It's tough, right? It's a hard thing to think of. And I think the other piece too is sometimes our family values will change, especially with the growth of our children. Our family values at a young age with kids, when we have the 3, 4, 5-year-olds, is going to look different than teenagers because we're trying to teach different things. So we learn, figuring out a way to intentionally choose our value is going to become a really important conversation for you guys at home. Our emphasis is going to be on building empathy and understanding, as well as creating a safe place for each member of the family, especially our kids, to practice and fail the skills. No kid is born perfectly ethical. No kid is born with an innate sense to behave or make good choices. Again, they are feeling beings more than thinking beings, so they're going to be reacting all over the place. So we want to give them a chance to fail and then help correct the behavior on the back end. What family values is not, it is not about culture, politics, or religion. Now, it may be influenced by it. I think a lot of us have a spirituality that we want that to influence our family values, and that's super important. But if we focus so hard on that one thing that's being told to us from an external place, we sometimes lose out on the nuance of how it actually supports our benefits our family, or actually sets our family up for failure. I know a lot of people get parenting advice off of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case may be. I see lots of stuff on the moms group always asking for help and advice, which is great. I'm glad we're having conversation. But sometimes then it gets so constrictive because they're being taught from, or they're giving information or knowledge based on their lens of their children versus your own lens of what you know of your family and their specific needs are. And lastly, family values is really about nurturing and growing our children to be resilient towards the stressors of the world and their future relationships. Because again, hopefully they will go and form their new relationships in the future, start their own families, have their own careers, have kids, deal with schools. All those things are super important. So as we get into various family values, this is one of the slides where I completely rejigged it. So I'm going to kind of go through these really quickly, and then we'll come back to each individual one. These are going to just be guidelines and a foundation from where to start. I actually, when I put these together, I used the Maslow's hierarchy of need to really focus on, like, okay, what does health means in terms of family values? What does safety mean? So we're going to go through those individually, and then I'm going to ask a question. And we're going to problem solve how we would approach this problem. So the first family value of health, we're going to be looking at physical, mental, and relational needs. So these are things like sleep, or are kids eating well? Are they exercising their body? Are they creating good friendships? Which is important when we're looking at things like bullying epidemic in school, correct? A lot of kids don't even know how to be friends. Our second one is about safety, about helping kids regulate their emotions and using brave words. We want kids, again, to feel safe enough that they're able to say, this is uncomfortable, or I'm struggling with this, or I need help. And those are ones that I find kids really struggle to say these days, especially the I need help, because I need help would look like that they might not be perfect, and that perfectionism piece is really high. And again, I'm going to come back to all of these. Next is love and belonging, where we're going to teach empathy, boundaries, friendship. Boundaries is very important in love and belonging, setting clear expectations. We cannot have true empathy without boundaries, and we can't have boundaries without empathy. And it's super important to integrate all of these. Esteem. This is where the focus becomes on how do we teach our kids resilience and an ability to explore the world, show curiosity for something, a drive for something, pursue it. And the last one is the family ethic, where really the focus is on what is the moral code of your family? What is your family philosophy? How do we teach our kids to be problem solvers from that place of what we're trying to teach? And obviously with a spiritual influence as well, if that it plays a large role. So I am going to go into our questions, and we're going to go back to the first one. All of these questions will be influenced by all areas, but I'm trying to focus more on one piece at a time. So let's say you have a son, and he really wants to play baseball. Practice is 3 nights a week from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Normal bedtime at your home is 7:30 p.m. What are the influences to decide if this is the right activity for your son? There's so many ways to answer this question, and it's really hard to decide. But sometimes we just say, oh, he wants to play baseball, this is the time, and we accept it. That's so often the case, and we don't take a step back to consider all these things that you brought up. Is there things that we can support our kids? Like you said, can we move when they wake up a half an hour, 45 minutes? Is there something we can do? Like baseball is super important because they need to learn the team aspect, the relationships like we talked about. They have to be able to move their body and engage in an activity for their physical and mental health. Is there anything we can do? Like can we support our kids by now making breakfast for them so that they don't have to do that in the morning, and that shortens what they have to do in the morning? So it becomes a really important decision as a family to figure out how do we make this, if this really is important, how do we make this a priority? How do we do this while keeping health in practice? One of the things I will say, especially with health, I would say 75% of my adolescent population that comes in, they're sleep deprived. From young all the way to teenagers, they are severely sleep deprived. They are not getting enough sleep. And as soon as we help the family determine how to get on a good, healthy sleep schedule and what they need, they don't need me anymore. Because anxiety is going down, stress levels are going down, impulsivity goes down a whole lot. So when we really prioritize health, and this is why I use the Maslow hierarchy of need, that bottom of the pyramid is so, so, so important. If we can get that in place and stable and be intentional around that, we see that generally families are doing so much better. For elementary school, no less than 10 hours. As they get younger, it's obviously more, and also depending on if there's naps, but at absolute minimum, it's 10 hours. If they're having a growth spurt, and our elementary schoolers have a lot of growth spurts, they usually need closer to 12. So I like to make sure there's wiggle room for when sleep needs to happen, especially when they're younger. Middle school, we're still at the 10. They can go down to about 9 and do okay, but again, especially when we're looking at our boys. I have a middle school son, so he's in that process of going from here to here. Which is exhausting on my pocketbook and getting them clothes. And food, that too. They do sometimes also need that 12 hours of sleep. And so it really does kind of mimic some of the elementary schoolers, but generally they can function on 9 to 10 hours in school and still be attentive. But again, being aware that they might need more and paying attention to that and how can we offer more. For high school, 8. 8 is a good number. I am happy if I can get my high schoolers to sleep 8 hours. Usually when they come in to see me, we're at 5 hours. 6 if I'm lucky. And it becomes really hard for them to be at school, be in the family. The anger that I see is just on the rise. The shutting down is on a rise. And it's really hard to put in the things in place to help our teenagers or high schoolers sleep. Whether it's, we have to have very strict rules around when they have phones in their rooms, any kind of TV, computer, iPad, whatever the case may be, so they actually turn off their brains and go to bed. I think this is the hardest lesson, and this is the hardest lesson that every family comes in and that they hate, because we also have to apply it to ourselves, is sometimes we really have to look at how many things we are in and say, is this actually reasonable? And a lot of times, especially for our kids, it's not reasonable. And especially because a lot of those kids go to college, and my husband is a college professor, so he sees this all the time. They get to college and they crumble. They have no energy anymore. They have no drive anymore. There is nothing, they have no lifeblood left to give to anything anymore. And they end up quitting. And again, this also goes back to the failure to launch piece as well, because they've just been so overscheduled for so long that they can't do it. Now, this is not 100%. There are some families who can do it. Like, we even look at, like, how do we put in naps? Take your lunch period. Eat and take a nap. And that's great. Then we already have another extra 30 minutes, and a 30-minute power nap, as the studies have shown, are very helpful. Same thing after school. How can we get something in there for you? And then also just talking about coaches about how do we balance this? Now, some coaches are going to be like, absolutely not. But at the same time, they also want healthy athletes as well. And so they might say, well, you know what? Mondays are conditioning. She's already doing all these other things. Why don't you skip the conditioning practice? And we already have another day that you can sleep in a little bit extra. So there are ways to do it and problem solve. But generally speaking, it does come down to what can we take away? What are we on? Safety? Okay, so you have a 5-year-old, so we're going to go to a 5-year-old. You have a 5-year-old child who is playing with your 3-year-old child. The 5-year-old is getting angry, and you see they're about to throw their toy at the sibling. What is your response? So this is one where I'm actually okay with a little behavioral. Because the goal is safety, our automatic response is actually to grab the toy that they're about to throw and say, I love you enough not to hurt your sibling. And the words are super important because we're trying to teach them to not have shame over the fact that they're about to do it, because it's an automatic response, but to make sure that they also know that in this family we don't hurt. Safety is important. This is one my son can recite very well because safety is always number one. Social justice is important. Being able to serve is very important. We talk about this all the time. So from a very young age, we said, in this family, we do not hurt. And so grabbing that toy becomes super important. And then we can help with calming them down, moving to other activities, really helping them understand what made you feel like you needed to throw the object. And a lot of times kids are going to be like, I don't know, I was angry. But that's when you have to start helping them build that story of what it was like to get there. Whether it's, hey, is it hard sometimes when your 3-year-old when your sibling is constantly pestering you and in your face? What can you do in that case? And so that becomes the teaching moment. But we have to help them figure out the words. They're not necessarily going to know it. So that one's a little bit easier in terms of safety. But I think the other piece too is sometimes with parenting, we expect our kids not to do it. So it's like, hey, don't throw that. Instead of actually stepping in and say, I love you enough to not let you hurt your sibling. In this family, we don't hurt. And to be very, very active in the parenting in the moment. All right. You received a report from school that your child kicked a peer at the playground. What do you do if you're disappointed because you didn't get to go down the slide first? The automatic problem solving for our kids will be, I'm going to kick them out of the way. I want to be first. So how do we deal with disappointment? What happens if maybe you were pushed first, the teacher didn't see it, and that's why you're kicking and pushing back? How do you deal with situations where it feels like you're being attacked? So that why becomes super important. And if we can talk about it, then the time comes to say, okay, but in this family we do not hurt, so what do we do instead? What can we do instead? And also I think the love and belonging piece, if this is also, the peer ends up to being, hey, this is my best friend, because this is what happened to my son. It's their best friend and you just kicked your best friend. You're breaking that relationship. How do you repair it? How do you repair it? Because that relationship is important to you. And I let the kids, usually my son or any of my clients, decide what it is they're going to do to repair, whether it's they write a letter of an apology, whether they go do a nice task for them, whether they give them a gift. It's a fun time to talk about love languages with their kids and trying to figure out other people's love language so they develop empathy for other people and understand that your needs might not be anybody else's. It becomes a really great teaching moment based on whatever, again, your value system is. And with love and belonging, we really want to teach how to be in friendship. I don't want my kid to be afraid when they come home that, hey, I got in trouble at school because I kicked someone. I could care less. Kids are going to kick people. I do care. That's not true. I know it's going to happen, so it's not the end of the world, even when I feel embarrassment as a clinician and my kid didn't behave and, you know, he should be the perfect kid because I'm a therapist mom. We have to be able to still go to, what are we teaching? How is he going to deal with the situation in the future? Because it will come up again. Your high schooler comes home and shows you their latest math test. It's a D. Yay! Your child has never received a D in math before. How do you approach this? Curiosity first, right? Always. So important. For them, the D might be good because this has been something they've been struggling on. The fact that they pass, like, hooray, because for some reason trigonometry just does not work in their brain. With resiliency especially, we want to make sure that they're not creating a narrative of, I'm stupid and I can't do this. We want our kids to learn how to fail gracefully because, I mean, failure is part of life. We're going to fail at a lot of things. We're going to send the wrong set of slides when we should have sent the updated ones. And we have to be able to say, okay, plan B it is. I got a D. Okay, something's not working. I need to try something else. Maybe I need a tutor over this thing. How do I ask for this help? Sometimes it's, well, you've never had to ask a teacher for help. Do you know how to do that? Let's write an email together. Do you know when your teacher has open math hours? Because I know a lot of high schools have that now, right? Where they have like a study center. How do you access that resource? How do we talk to a school counselor who might lead us in the direction that we need to go to make sure this is it? Is this something else? Are we talking like we haven't slept right, we're not eating well, we're having a fight with a significant other, with a friend? Whatever the case may be, we have to be able to address those things. But sometimes it's so easy to just say, I have a D, and everything shuts down from there. But it doesn't. A D isn't the end of the world. There is always something we can do to problem solve. And we want to get our kids to that place of saying, I can cope with this, I can problem solve, and I can go towards something else to make me better in this area. Family ethic. Okay, this one's fun. You and your spouse both are having a rough week. Sleep is hard to come by. Projects are due at work. And now one of your children is complaining of a sore throat and has started to cough. Your spouse walks into the kitchen, looks around and asks, why does the house look so messy? Those are fighting words, right? Oh yeah. A large argument ensues and all the kids are witness to it. This goes to your family philosophy. Again, I'm going to go back to mine. In this family, we do not hurt. What did we do? We hurt each other with these words. I mean, obviously we were exhausted. This is just ripe for failure. No one's going to succeed in this instance. And we also need to let our kids know that too. And I think when we're talking about an apology, we have to do it in front of our kids. How to show them what does a real apology look like. You guys are a team, and sometimes teammates crumble, and sometimes we're not at our best, and that's okay. We're gonna fail at this sometimes. We're gonna lose the big game. So how do we get back the next day or in the next moment after we take some deep breaths? Everyone goes to their quiet corners, do whatever they need, come back. Now how do we come back together and have a conversation about what happened? And I think being able to converse in front of their kids is giant because they're learning from you just about interacting in a relationship. This one's a tough one too, because when we're looking at family ethics, this is where you guys are going to have to decide, again, with your family, how do you want to approach problems? How do you want to approach failures? How do you want to approach crises? Because if you guys already have that verbalized, it'll be easier for you to come back around when the bad things happen, because we're never at our best in a crisis. It is a rarity that we function correctly. I mean, even if we look at when we look at the military and the police and whatnot, we teach them, we give them skills, they have policies, they have training, they really create muscle memory of what to do in crisis so that they don't shut down. And we have to do the same thing. We have to role play it, we have to talk through it, we have to really come together as a family and say, this is a priority, we're gonna make this work. Family should be a place where you can be your most complete self, where you're accepted and appreciated, seen, values even in moments of disagreement. It should be your soft place to fall, the place where you're reminded that no matter what happens to you, in the face of your deepest challenges, you are loved. I think if there's no better definition of family and family values, I think it's a beautiful quote. All right, please, that's the code to me. You can find me. If you ever need anything, please reach out. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.